Brand primarily is a result of the promise a company, a founder, an organization that makes to the customers, its partners, its people.
Brand in B2B is absolutely important, or maybe even more important than B2C.
It's not just about the colors or the logo or the font. Right? It's how your customers perceive.
When people make complex decisions, they make those decisions based on trust.
Branding is definitely a long-term aspect. Every founder should invest in.
I think India has come of age. India itself has larger role to play on the world stage.
So Tata, of course, is somebody that I follow, I look up to.
Brand has that property of communicating a sense of you as a company, a sense of your value proposition, a sense of your persona.
I think especially for branding, visual plays a very, very important role.
And once they know you are in their consideration set, then when they buy, you're going to get invited. Hey there, welcome to this new episode of Decoding B2B Marketing on B2B Marketing Shepherd. I am Rajesh Kumar and I'm so excited to have you tune in. B2B is where I landed up by serendipity and then made a career for over 2 decades across companies like Microsoft, SAP, HCL and UiPath. B2B marketing can feel complex and not enough straight talk. That is why we are here, to help you get clarity, build strong brands and marketing that works. I've been working also on a book by the same title that comes out soon on Amazon. Stay tuned. Every week, I will sit down with the best and the brightest in B2B marketing and decode what is real, what is not, and what you can take action on right now. And that will include all things AI, how it is changing every aspect of B2B marketing. Today, I'm kicking off this conversation with a super cool marketer, Pritish Asthana, VP Marketing at Lentra. The experience of working at companies like GE Capital, IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, and PwC has endowed him with an unmatched combination of a rebel creative streak and data-driven marketing. We will dive into why building a strong brand is the key to sustained B2B marketing effectiveness, and more importantly, how to do it. Ready? Let's decode together. So Pritish, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm very curious to know what got you into B2B marketing. What keeps you here? Your highs and lows, and would you do it all over again if you had a choice?
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much, Rajesh, for inviting and having me here for this conversation. I'm equally excited, of course. I think there were plenty of questions that you've put in there, but does it excite me? Yes, it excites me every single day. And I am, in my entire journey that I have spent as in my career, I think it excites me even more with the fact that I have now become, or at least landed, to become a brand marketer or a marketer, as I think it allows me to be constantly innovative with my thoughts, with my various aspects of how do I excite people and keep pulling them in terms of from what we do, right? So I think that's the key for me in terms of what drives me, right? And your second aspect in terms of how and what got me into this is, it actually, I never started as a marketer. I was across various roles that I have done, but I think the passion for creativity is something that led me towards becoming a marketer. And though late, but I think I'm glad that, like I was just mentioning, I'm glad that I'm in now this role or in this function per se, to be able to drive what I love doing and produce results as a part of it.
What drives you as a person? I know you have many interesting sides to you. You are an avid rider. I was amazed. You rode all the way from Pune to Delhi and Indore and way back along with family. And your wife is equally a good driver. You're a cook. You're an artist, you're a photographer. So tell us what keeps you going, and I guess that adds to your rebel creative streak.
Yeah, so I think both the passion for driving, riding, cooking, as well as photography has been there from the very onset. I think it's almost about. I remember my father, of course, being a photographer, and I think that's where it came in from. Not too much of a driver or rider, but I think that's where the passion came in terms of. So across each, if I look at it and if I reflect on that, Rajesh, is all of them have one thing in common. It has helped me to learn how to become or how to focus, right? Whether you are driving, you're focused on the road. You have a destination, but you find your various routes to get to your destination. Whether you are a photographer, right? You find the right, you're patient, you're focused in terms of finding that right frame, the right time to be able to capture that. And of course, cooking, because you have, or I love to eat, I love to create. So that also brings out the creativity. So I think these have been passions that I have, all three different areas, but I think it has helped me to groom in learning and be patient, be focused, be able to create, right? And that also reflects in terms of what I bring on in my professional environment as well.
What you told and said just now seemed to rhyme so well with, many moons ago I read Zen of the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Yeah. And then been following Anthony Bourdain on cooking, and I follow Sean Tuck for photography. Right. So all seem to reflect, similar perspectives.
And you yourself are a phenomenal cook as well as a creator, right? I mean, both
everything
in terms of food as well as, I mean, mixology is something that, and I follow your handle, right? Weekend Chef, sorry, I just may have not, but I think you yourself are such an amazing creator of, and an artist of creating the art of food and drinks. And
thank you. Thank you. I think that's why we are all in marketing. Exactly. And for our audience and viewers, it's a great place to be. As much as, you think about marketing, there is a lot of creativity. There's a lot of exciting, cohorts and people you get to work with when you're in B2B marketing. So Pritish, changing tacks, coming to our topic of the today. And let's start from the very beginning. What is a brand in your mind?
Okay. So my definition of brand per se, and my thought on brand is, brand primarily is a result of the promise a company, a founder, an organization that makes to the customers, its partners, its people, right? It is not just about the colors or the logo or the font, right? It's how people, it's how your customers perceive or build that perception about you, and the promise you continue to deliver to them. I think that is what the brand is. And the beauty about this brand is, then it not only is a marketing aspect, it is everyone's aspect in the organization. Whether it is sales and marketing, whether it is corporate strategy, whether it is the founder himself, or whether it is HR or sales marketing. So all of them come together to drive that promise, to be able to create that result in your customer's, partner's mind, which then helps in building that trust. And as you continue to build more and more trust, your brand, of course, becomes bigger and more established. I think that's what I look at brand as, and the definition of brand, and that's how I continue to look, drive. And then you, of course, have various pillars in terms of how you do that, right? So that is what brand to me is.
See, we've always heard so much more about brand in the B2C context, right? So how do you think about a brand in the B2B context? Is it any different? Is it as important?
It is very, very important. I think, in today's digital world, at least, you have the ability to reach out to and connect, right, with your audience. And brand or two organizations, people connect. Connection happens at a person level, right? And it's personalized. And I think everyone talks about it time in and again. And once you're able to establish people or the connect as a person to another person, right? I think that's where today it becomes even better, or it's important for brand marketers or B2B marketers to be able to do that. Erstwhile, if you look at it, of course, B2C had various this thing, whether it is going out on newspaper or radio, and that, a lot of it used to, but not that B2B did not advertise then. So then vis-a-vis today, I think a lot more focus happens and you're able to do a better connection because of the various digital spectrum and platforms you have to connect with your audience.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the perception was possibly led by the fact that the consumer brands are closer to our day-to-day life.
Right.
And having a mass audience, they use the mass media of yours,
Right,
which is print and television and radio commercials and so on and so forth.
See, B2C also is an individual decision. A B2B is many people in the organizations. It's a collective decision, right?
I mean, B2B is, at the end of the day, a more focused audience.
Right.
And therefore, if you used mass media, it became a lot of spillage. Right? But now in the era of digital, you can actually very specifically choose and reach out to people with messages, advertising, and so on and so forth. I think that has sort of liberated and brought that in the forefront.
Absolutely.
And I definitely feel that brand in B2B is absolutely important, or maybe even more important than B2C. Because like you said, B2B is a complex decision, involves many, many stakeholders.
Correct.
It's usually a larger outlay. And it's not an impulse decision and it's not an impulse consumption. I mean, if you think of ERP software, or you think of a piece of machinery you're buying for your factory,
Right,
or any services that you're buying, logistics services, usually they are for a really long time. It takes time to decide, buy them. It takes time to deploy them, implement them. It takes time to get value out of them.
right.
And once it's running, there is little incentive to change,
Correct.
right? And when people make complex decisions, they make those decisions based on trust. And that came up in all of our other episodes as well.
Right. Right.
And trust gets established by what others say about you than what you say about yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? And if I translate this into the scenario of Indian SaaS players, right? Typically, a great innovation comes together. A person or few people come together, create a great innovation. By power of innovation and their personal credibility, they get initial customers in.
Right.
And once they reach a critical mass, then their ability to reach everyone goes down. So it is when, if there is a structured process for encapsulating and nurturing and messaging it as a brand, then the same values and same promise can be communicated to much larger set of prospects, therefore enlarging and growing the market for them. And that is the point at which many of them get stationary, because they cannot scale beyond a point.
Right.
Right? And even in organizations, with the passage of time, people change, decision makers change.
Right.
So every time there is a new exercise, but the brand has that property of communicating a sense of you as a company, a sense of your value proposition, a sense of your persona in one go. Right? Similarly, I've seen larger global corporations come to India.
Right.
And I think maybe 2 decades ago, India wasn't a large enough market. So they thought of India only as another place to sell. Right? But I think that has changed. India is now mostly in top 2 markets in APJ for.
As a matter of fact, if you look at it and if you see, and you're right, 2 decades ago, India was always considered a subsidiary, right, of the APJ market, as a matter of fact. Today, a lot of the technology companies have made India as an independent market. away from APJ. And APJ is a different market. India is a different market because India has seen that growth. And today India is on the next path in terms of how we become the next $1 trillion economy.
Also, I think over last maybe 10 or 15 years, the India has grown digitally way ahead of many of the mature markets. When they are digital stack, Jandhan, mobile, internet, and so on and so forth, right? So India's importance has grown, and therefore companies have started investing to localize their brand for India. And we see examples with, say, Salesforce using Rahul Dravid and so on and so forth. Right. Similarly, I think Indian companies that earlier started with the idea of being low-cost providers or cost arbitrage are no longer satisfied with that. We are going up the value chain, our own costs have gone up, so therefore we need a brand to tell our story to the world. Absolutely. I think India has come of age. India itself has larger role to play on the world stage. So if you see, many of our brands like TCS, brands like Infosys are well known, and many of the startups are making their mark as well, right? So tell me, what is the process of brand creation? What all does it involve? Unpack for us, so that everyone understands this whole mystery behind, how do you capture hearts and minds of your customers?
So Rajesh, as I was mentioning, or as I had mentioned earlier, brand primarily is the result of the promise you make, right? And I think it all starts with the fundamental question of why. And from that why, once you are able to start defining in terms of what promise you are creating for your customers, whether it is, or for your customers, partners, people, which is including your employee, I think that is the fundamental core or becomes the nucleus in terms of where and how a brand will evolve, right? And from there, of course, you start further drilling down in terms of your customer context, in terms of your internal, external communication, and all those aspects put together will start forming what your brand will promise to your customers, basis which a result gets created and the perception, and then further on the trust it will build. I think that's the first fundamental. So any founder, any business owner, any entrepreneur should spend some time, and I think I did see in one of your episodes as well, where this is a short term and a long term. Marketing per se and branding is, you could have both short term as well as long term. But branding, of course, over a period, or branding is definitely a long term aspect. Every founder should invest in or as a part of their vision, right? And be patient in terms of creating that brand, because that is what will bring them to the next level and every level further on as they keep. Because every business or every journey, let's say, put it this way, there is a growth, there is a plateau, then there's the next phase of growth, then there's a plateau, then there's the next phase, right? We've all seen it in various aspects, and businesses also go through that. I think it is the brand that helps them, or brand that will help in terms of taking from a plateau to the next level, is what I believe in, is what we should continue to invest on, and move with that.
So unpack for us, you've been a part of brand creation and brand refresh at your current organization. Right. Unpack for us, how does one go about it?
Okay, so I think the first aspect of the approach was getting to sit with the leadership, with the founder, to understand what their story is. Okay, what is their aim? What is their goal? Because for any organization, the founders are the best storytellers. Okay, one needs to get into their minds to understand how is it that they tell the story, and capture as much as you can in terms of that story, and see how then you as a marketer, as a creative person, are able to take all that and create it as a part of the narrative that you would want to take out there. I think that is the first and foremost step one should look at. Once you've done that, then you work with professionals like yourselves to sit on that strategy and create the various strategies, because Brand, of course, is something that requires a lot of investment, but you can also be cognizant in terms of how and to what value you want to create that, right? You could create that with with midterm, short term, long term. So once you understand the aim, the goal, right? I think in branding, one of the first and foremost or key essential aspect is the visual design. And working with professionals, agencies, and having that clarity as to what your next steps in terms of short, mid, and long term are, you start working in creating that content, or you create all the visual aspects of it. I think, especially for branding, visual plays a very, very important role, because what you see is what you believe, right? And I think that's also something that strikes first before people start to listen to the narrative or the stories and so on and so forth. So having a strong visual makes a huge impact. And I think founders should look at actually working with such set of professionals to be able to create uh, aesthetically very, very strong visuals, which defines or gets defined under brand guidelines in terms of the font they will use, in terms of the colors, and so on and so forth. I think that is important area.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because I think of brands as people, someone we relate to, right? And when we meet someone, say to do business, the first impression we have is visual. I mean, in a group of people, who do we want to meet? And we form very quick impressions. And so is true with the brand. The first time you look at a logo of the company, or the colors of the company, or the font of the company, there are lots of impressions you form. Right. And that's how you think of them. Whether you think of them as a small time but maybe brilliant operator, or you think of them as somebody you can bet your business on. Right. I mean, classical example for the fintech company from that we were speaking about right now, it is actually banks, and it does, so like Lentra does business with banks. So it is not so much looking like a startup. It is more like a reliable industry partner that you can trust to simplify technology for you. Right. That's a very different visual metaphor, versus being seen as a cool new startup, because that may not necessarily inspire confidence and long-term trust.
Correct. So you're right. I mean, one of the reasons that we looked at, and as you were asking, one of the reasons why we invested in terms of our time, effort with the founder to be able to do that brand refresh was to create that impression.
So I think, like people you do business with, brands also have the same thing, right? And this is a skill which is potentially different from communication design. So therefore, not always in the area of advertising agencies. Right. There are specialized professionals in design field who will translate your vision and your promise into a visual metaphor, right, which is what then powers your identity. And right, then part of that becomes your logo, your colors, your font, how you represent, your imagery, and so on and so forth. Right. There are so many different elements under it, yes, but they together, when followed consistently, create that perception in people's mind, right? Now, once they notice you, then what, right? How do you tell your story? So saying your narrative, almost like an elevator pitch, or describing yourself as a business and your promise succinctly and consistently over a period of time, creates that understanding and appreciation for who you are. Mm-hmm. I think those are sort of two clear elements with which people start when done consistently through channels and mediums that they frequent, they start making an impression. And again, channels are important. If you are reaching senior decision makers, then you need appropriate channels, not only because they go there, but the quality of the channel rubs on to how they see you. Right. I mean, if you are going to be at a business club, right, that creates a different perception. Right. Or you're going to be in a CEO magazine or a strategic thought leadership magazine like HBR, or Wall Street Journal or Financial Times, that create a perception, because that's how people see you. And then the second level I always see is how do you get into their consideration set, which is about then building your content and narrative and so on and so forth to show somebody who understands their reality, whether it's industry or horizontal and so on and so forth, and can be their partner. Okay. And once they know you are in their consideration set, then when they buy, you're going to get invited. Right. And that's where your rest of the demand or revenue marketing in that sense starts. True. Right? So tell me, what are the global and Indian B2B brands that you admire, and what do you see they have done that stands out and others can follow?
So globally, I think there are plenty that one can refer to, right? I mean, especially in the technology space, if you have Microsoft, Oracle, some of them that you and I have both worked with, I think we see how they, how over a period of time the brand or, is something that you obviously are proud of. You're proud of working with there. You're proud in terms of, it also helps to create the pull factor when you're engaging with customers. The trust factor itself is there. And as you just mentioned, you're always there in that buying consideration. I mean, take for example, everyone talks about, let's consider Microsoft. It's not about Office or a Windows or a SQL Server and so on and so forth. It's Microsoft, right? So that is from a global perspective. I think one of the Indian organizations I can definitely think of is also Tata. I think over a period of time, and that is reflective across Tata's entire stream, whether it is Tata Communications, whether it is Tata Motors, I think the value and that they demonstrate, and they have created that perception with their buyers or their customers, and they come in both, whether B2B or B2C, right? It's the trust that they have created. So Tata, of course, is somebody that I follow, I look up to, and they have even being such a large organization, you can see across that everyone lives that and upholds that brand and the value of it.
Yeah, I think two of the Indian brands I saw latest Kantar brand study are now in top 100, which is Tata Company, TCS and Infosys, right? But we want to see more and more of the Indian, brands there. But talk to me about some brands which are not necessarily software, even globally, which are strong B2B brands. See, many are corporate identity sometimes across because they have consumer businesses also.
So,
any advertising that stayed
so I'll
with
probably
you,
take
any brand logo that stayed with you?
I think I'll take an example, and this happened when I was running my own agency, but I happened to work with Caterpillar, right? And what I see, and what I saw was how Caterpillar continues to function even at the ground level of it, right? So if the operator has to, the operator comes first, which means his safety comes first. So he has to have all the gear to be able to, and wear that gear before he operates. So we were doing an ad film for them and a brand film for them, which was to serve all across India and the Indian market. You would understand most of your buyers of Caterpillar machinery are people who are in road construction or civils work and so on and so forth, right? So for them, it was, of course, language was one aspect of it, but this brand film, they made sure that even the operator is living the value as what Caterpillar drives. Safety comes first for the operator, right? They are the most reliable brand when it comes to getting the job done. So those aspects and those values even gets reflected. So outside this, it's how companies drive that entire communication, right? Through various aspects, whether it's visual, whether it's through people, whether it is demonstrating through videos and so on and so forth. I think that's what comes across, and you have to be consistent to drive that message.
And some of the cool brands we've seen, I think a few years ago, brilliant communication by Volvo Trucks, yes, right? And then some very good work, always consistently by GE as an organization, has had very strong corporate branding element that has powered many of their businesses. And I'm also curious, when you have limited resources, how do you communicate your brand after you've done the work, you've done the design, you've created your brand guidelines, brand book, everything? How do you communicate it? What tactics do you use to get a share of customers' mind?
I think, that's something that if you are clear in terms of where your customer is, who your customer is. Uh, Today, with the digital world that we, of course, or the platform that we continue to use, you're able to identify, target that, right? And branding or communication as a part of your branding, the voice and everything, you're able to, of course, target and land your message in a much more effective and a personalized way, where people then become a part of your buying, or your customers' buying cycle consideration. I think that is what is important.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some very nice examples of, TCS espousing the cause of marathons. The sponsorship has done very well for them. HCL association with the Ferrari team has done very well, because those sort of things, they focused and concentrated their resources in one area, and that has built a property for them in a very long-term sustained effort, which has resulted in strong awareness.
Yes, brands eventually find one area to, focus on, to find that, whether it is philanthropic, whether it is sports, whether it is education, right? And use that to create a property where people then start relating, because at the end of the day, it's people, right? So as long as you're able to also demonstrate, communicate, and engage using such mediums, it helps brands to elevate their position.
Okay, and so what digital tools and technologies do you use in the area of brand?
I think a lot of creative tools that are available or have been available, whether it's Adobe, and today, I mean, there are plethora of them, right? Whether it is for video creation, whether it is static, like visuals on Canva and so on and so forth. And most important, the new, the young marketeers who come with already, they are born in this new age, right? So for them, with various tools that they continue to explore on their social or their mobile or their web, I think those are aspects. They bring in all these various knowledge of new tools that are available, which are already pre-built with AI or are getting there, and help to make the workflow better in organizations. Your productivity is much faster. So today, if you are working, if you have a team of young marketers, you basically tell them, this is what we are out there, this is the objective, and they figure it out. They know the tools that are to work upon. Of course, the traditionally, like I mentioned, your tools like Adobe and all are already available, especially in the creative side of it. And they today are also now enhancing and building and getting a lot of AI aspects. So that is helping out teams to become more efficient, faster, and produce results.
Any specific use cases of AI that you have tested yourself, or you are seeing coming up, or you see will be useful in immediate?
Yeah, I mean,
near future?
look at ChatGPT. Okay, today it's at disposal. It's at disposal on everyone's hand, right? You no longer are relying on your content or your copywriter. You may have the first construct that comes out of your copywriter, but if you are also part of that, where you're then taking the next level, you yourself can quickly use ChatGPT. You know what your objective is, do the tweak, and produce the result. So it's not about keep going back and forth like traditionally it used to have, right? I mean, it used to be like, you work with the agency, first draft comes in, second draft comes in, you go back, you're giving this thing. It no longer is required. I think some of these tools which are available at hand, you've just got to pick up and start working and making yourself better as well with it. So you're having tools at your disposal to work better and more efficient.
What will be your advice for people aspiring to make a career in B2B in the brand area?
I think whether it is brand or other parts of marketing, important aspect is to understand the business. That's the first aspect I would say. You should understand what business you are in or what the organization is in, right? If you're able to understand that, then you're able to fix or you're able to fetch as well as determine how you want to market and what is the narrative you want to say or what is how you want to help to build that brand. Remember, you are one pillar to your founder, to the uh, owner, to the entrepreneur to help elevate and build, right? Because brand is, you do a brand building. So you're an important aspect. And to be able to understand the business is what will start reflecting in terms of the various activities you will plan, whether it is from visual defining, whether it is from content, whether it is also to then continue to serve all that content to your customers.
How do you hire for roles in brand marketing? What kind of skills and competencies do you look for beyond understanding a business?
I think if you know that what you are and where you are, at what stage of you are. So, for example, if I'm a startup or I'm working in a startup completely, I'll look at young minds that have won the drive. Second is across, whether it is creating visuals. So you have visual storytellers, you have graphic designers, then you have content writers. And I think somebody who also understands the third area is in terms of your digital overall, whether it is how do you land all these content that you create digitally across the various web and social. I think these are three critical areas to start off with, and you build your team around that so that you constantly serve and are able to continue to serve that content to continue to engage with customers.
How do you measure success of an investment in brand?
I think measurement of the brand comes over time with how your customers are engaging with you, how many times you get in the consideration cycle, right? And what is the trust? Now, whether it is a new customer that you are trying to acquire, whether it is your existing customer, what is and how is it that you are obviously engaged, and how many times does the customer engage with you, is honestly the true measurement in terms of how your brand is doing and the perception and the trust that you've built. Of course, there are various measures which are available or which people put in a corporate strategy, if I may say. But I think that's the true measurement in terms of how your customers' trust is growing.
Well, thank you. That was a
Thank
great
you.
way to decode branding in B2B marketing. Big thanks to you for sharing so many insights and helping share your experience in this area. If you found this helpful, we'd love you to hit a follow or leave a quick review on any of the channels that we are on, whether video or audio, and share this episode with someone in your network who cares about better B2B marketing. That way, we can keep bringing you exciting content every single week. If you got a topic or question you want us to take on, reach out to me on LinkedIn or put a comment in any of the review sections. We would genuinely love to hear from you and take up the topics you want us to. So thank you again for listening and viewing. And remember, don't follow the herd, lead it. You are the shepherd. See you next time.